just do a little update. I've decided I am going ahead with my own bedsides that I've rolled the tops on. So the original one I haven't used. I thought I could do, I learned so much that I could do better on another set. So I've made a second one and third one. So this is how it's come out. Nicely all formed, and it's dead straight, which is pretty remarkable. So I've also spot welded it, the flange all the way along, so it's really strong and stiff, yet not much added weight at all. I also folded up a piece of angle, and as you can see it sits flush with the routed step I put in here. So I just fold that over the channel as well, and I've got some M10 button heads securing it through the floor and into the frame brackets below. Now I improved the roll by, I start off with this one, which is 44mm diameter. The inside of the roll is 48.5, and just because there's a bit of spring back, so that is what I pulled it over. You might remember in the last video. Then this is basically within 1/2 mil the diameter of the inside of the roll, and I pushed that through and then forced this steel bar, this steel SHS, through by hammering it all the way to the other side, which forced that pipe across. So the pipe was sitting in here, and as I forced that square tube through here, it pushed that pipe across, and then using a wooden lead beating bat, just tapped it around as the tube is coming through, and it came out really well. I'm very pleased with the result. So I've made both the left and right, and now I'm making the stake pockets for it. So I played around with a cardboard template until I was happy with a shape, and then I've first bead rolled this in. So the first thing I did with the bead roll, you can see over here is my test piece. Now it's probably not that, I'm particular, so the section through here where the bead roll is got pulled in by 2mm because it's pulling the metal in to form that. So unless you can stretch that at the same time by forcing it through these beads and botting them out and then really squashing them in there, which I find this bead roll's got a little bit, probably too much flex to really clamp down tight to get that. So what I did is I stretched the center in this with this high anvil, and just kept measuring over the top of the flat blank until it was 2mm wider where the bead's going to go. So I knew then when I put the bead through, it's now the same dimension from one end to the other. So then I just folded it just in the hand folder with the flat piece and I folded that up, and to make the curves I actually cut the mounting plate back a little bit here because it doesn't need it for support, so I could get this in, say, the stretcher. So this side I mark with a plus, so that adds material. So you would use that on the outside of a curve because it's gaining radius as you push it through here. The jaws come down and spread, so it's thinning the metal and pulling the metal apart as it goes through. And then when you want it to curve back the other way, you go over to what I've called the negative side, and you put that in. Of course you've got to do both sides evenly, so you do this side, turn it over, do exactly the same amount on the other side, and you just keep checking back against the template until you get what you want. So once I've got this channel, which is with some good flanges on it, I come here, and to make the rest of the side of the stake pocket, I basically put it on top of here run a scribe along that edge and then cut this piece, which makes up the rest of the side pocket, and then weld it in. So this has just come off. The only thing I've done here is hammered this quickly a few minutes ago while it was still hot. And that's not called hammer welding. The welding has already been done. This is just planishing while it's warm. It just goes a little bit quicker. You can do it cold, especially because this has just been TIG welded. So I used a 1.2 lanthionated tungsten. I used a little bit of the 1.2 millimeter MIG wire as a filler rod, and this is 1.2 millimeter steel as well. So they all match, easy to remember, and I just use my panel. So I can't tell you what voltage, because I look at the weld pool and feed the wire in as I'm going along, and I do, as you can see by the heat affected zone, the haze, I do that in a single pass. So it's all tacked up. So I tack both sides on, and this side you can see I've already TIG welded, then planished when it was still warm to bring it down flat. And so I just planished it over this or the tow bar tongue if it was sitting up slightly. If it dipped down where it was welded, pulled down, I would put it over this shoe last, and I basically grab the end of the stake pocket, one end, and pulling down with this hand hard. The other end's tucked up under my chest. I'm pulling down with that side, and then I'm hammering each side of this radius. So you balance it so the weld is directly, or the low spot, depends if it's a weld or anything, or a dent, is on the crown, and as you tap around it, it pulls that up, and then it flattens it out. It's a time-consuming thing. If it could be half an hour or it could be an hour per weld on that stake pocket. But this is the result you get. The weld basically disappears. So here's another side for the passenger side here. It's completed. So this stake pocket is on the cab side, and I've made this wider, and this is where the side that goes behind the cab, the end panel, will bolt through here. And I made it with an end cap all enclosed, because it's up against the flat back of the cab, so I didn't want anything rounded there, otherwise it looks a little bit weird. So this is all spot welded in. I put a little step in there to go over this flange, turn this flange at the top. That's why you'll see one. So this is the bottom, and that's been made longer, so I've got enough room to pull the flange over and put the step in and everything like that. So this is the tailgate in, and you can see how that's come out. So this is a double width, this is 2 inches wide or 50 mil, because the tailgate will be flush behind here and be sitting over the floor, and this will have a curve going into the tailgate out of some mandrel pipe eventually. But that gives you an idea of how these are coming out. I'm surprised myself, and I'm so glad I persisted. These little belled or dimple dyed holes, these come out inside the wheel arch, and rather than cutting up and down and back down like on a Chev, I don't think you can quite see it, but anyway, one is for the shock absorber bolt. As you can see, I made a quick rough mark, haven't done this one yet, and the other one's for the sway bar, and that's to make sure I can change the shock absorber and the sway bar should it ever need replacing without pulling the side off. And I've got to think ahead of these things. So that's what this is for. So this is the exact size of the bolt with the washer on it that it needs to be for each of those two things. And that's basically sitting inside the wheel arch, so not very noticeable. And I'd rather leave the strength of this whole flange, because this will still have the skirts going off it out, well, at each end, not where the guard is itself, or fender as you'd like to call it in America. So anyway, update to show you what's happened, but the only thing I can left talk about is I've got an original 1948, which is the year of my chassis and part of the cab, tailgate with the WO in it. Now these have become real collector's items because they're only made on the Willys trucks, not when they were bought out by Case and got called Jeep, which was from mid 1953 on, and so all they did on the old press mould is they removed this part of it, so you get this odd eye shape that's odd in length because it no longer has to fit in around the WO, which stands for Willys Overland, when Willys and Overland came together as a partnership. So these are extremely rare, and people reported them going for as much as $1,000 US, but I bought this 10 years ago and imported it into Australia, and probably the only one here. So I don't know, I can't bring myself yet if I'll cut this up to make it to the dimensions that I need and put the bigger roll on the top. So I could just use this centre pressing and then form the new rolls top and bottom and the extra width that I need to suit my bed, or I B-roll that in myself. I'm not sure if my roller will quite go that far, but I could always do the centre as a separate piece, or make a press mould if we could sell some, I suppose, but trademark infringements, etc. But anyway, that's one of the next things I'll be doing once all the sides are complete. Alright, thanks for listening in.